With hundreds, no, thousands of FNAF games out there, it's clear Freddy is quite the popular bear. If you're new to this channel, essentially I have sold my soul to playing every single FNAF fan game out there. In fact, I have multiple hours of FNAF fan game videos you should definitely watch after this one. Anyways, enough messing around. Today I have picked 4 of the most unique and, dare I say, scariest FNAF games I could play. All in the attempt to, well, scare myself. So get a snack, get a drink, and sit back and relax because we have some of the scariest FNAF games ever to get through. So let's get into it. You greet the void and it starts to speak to us. It says quite blatantly, one day you will die and return to this void. And it gives us a little bit of encouragement that whatever we're entering is not going to be fun. It even asks us what name would I like on my headstone. Of course, I would put the name Grand Regent Thrag. And with that puts us straight into Freddy's Reanimated, which is what is to be one of the scariest FNAF games I've ever played. We begin this game with a cutscene of the Freddy Fazbear establishment said to be closed by summer. Not much is known for the reasoning of the closure, but all we can assume is there's going to be something to do with missing children. All we get is an email congratulating on us getting into the job. We then work our first shift and immediately the game itself gives us a eerie atmosphere to go off. We look onto the cameras where we can see all the animatronics, Freddy, Chica and Bonnie. They seem to be playing their respective instrument and everything seems to be going correctly. Phone guy is telling us that, things may look creepy, just keep an eye on them, and even saying we should be paying them to keep an eye on us, giving us some clarity that nothing is going to go wrong. If you know anything about FNAF games, you can assure this is all bullshit. Everything seems to be fine, nothing seems to be moving, and we can assure ourselves that nothing is going to happen. Well, that all changes very quickly as the movement of Bonnie begins a streak of panic. Suddenly, one of the animatronics have sprang to life, and it is our job now to make sure they don't get near the office. But that doesn't really work, does it? Because it's FNAF, and they're gonna get closer no matter what. And as soon as we knew it, Bonnie was literally right outside camera 7, which if you look at the map, it's right outside our office. So things are not looking too great. We have an animatronic literally outside the office. And as soon as we knew it, looking at the blinds right in front of us, the animatronic appears, and this puts me into an absolute frenzy. My instinct told me, hey, put down the blind because whatever it is, we don't want that thing seeing us. Hey! Go away. And by putting down the blind, Bonnie could be heard walking away from the office. This is how we get rid of Bonnie, but this is pretty much the first of many animatronics we're going to encounter throughout this game. With that, night 1 would be simply a repetitive task of doing this exact same thing. And as soon as I knew it, I would basically make it to 6 AM. However, our shift was not completed yet. Phone guy again rings us, telling us that there's an old computer with some company files that obviously he wants us to upload all those files onto the cloud. Us being the great silly worker that we are, go and do the task even after encountering all the animatronics. In this room, we have a bunch of stuff to send onto the upload. This part was a little bit concerning because I was not sure if something would appear in the very suspicious doorway to our left. However, all would be pretty good and nothing would end up appearing. After completing this, we could walk out the pizzeria and end our first shift at Freddy's. The next night, our phone guy again calls us, telling us that he doesn't really know what's going on. He does mention that if one can move, who's to say the others can? Pretty much not being helpful at all, just telling us, hey, if you're right, then they're all gonna move. This time around though, another animatronic would begin to activate, this being Chica. Chica works differently to Bonnie. Instead of making her way toward our office, she will tend to go to cameras 4 and cameras 2. But what Chica can do from these 2 cameras is she can literally dart to our office at any time on these cameras. She can be on cam 2, and if she wanted to, she can just go, I'm going straight to your office and you can't do anything about it. However, we can do one thing, and that is to wait for the second she's about to move. At this rate, she will make a movement that's signifying she's gonna go, and a red warning icon will appear on the camera. If we see this, we need to use the flash. This system overrides her. I'm making this bullshit up. I don't know what it actually does, but she doesn't end up moving, which is great because last time I checked, I don't want to get my face eaten off by a 7-foot animatronic. All jokes aside, this does make the night a little bit more interesting because now we not only have Bonnie, but we have Chica to deal with. I found that dealing with these two was not really the most hardest task, but it definitely was not easy and did require me to occasionally check the camera and then check the blind for Bonnie. And knowing that if I missed Bonnie, then I would certainly be jump scared. I would eventually be successful and complete the night. However, this time around, we have another post-night section. Phone guy says that, well, he forgot to mention that we have to go ahead and fix the power grid. Such a silly phone guy, and with us being the absolute, nice security guard that we are, we listen to phone guy and go to the back room. Here we have access to the power grid, and this is basically like a metering system, and we need to put the icon to where the meter should be. To know where the meter should be, we need to reset the power, and if there's a red, visual, then we've done the wrong one and we need to fix it. Pretty simple. However, what's not so simple is if we look left this time, we can see Bonnie, who decides to, hey, I'm gonna start to appear and good luck dealing with me. Thankfully though, Bonnie this time, it doesn't like when you look at him. Every time you stare at Bonnie, he walks backwards. However, if you don't look at him and you look at the power grid, then he will come closer and he will basically jump scare you. Ah! Oh, what the f? Oh my. And sometimes he may even appear right in front of you, which did make me scream. So this whole section is basically be patient, just go through the power grid and make sure to keep Bonnie as far away as humanly possible. With that, I would eventually beat the night, but not to my surprise. Going out of this room, Chica would terrifyingly be around an arm's length away from me. I immediately screamed and went straight to the exit door without even thinking twice. This finished Tuesday and we moved into the Wednesday night shift. Moving into night 3, also known as the Wednesday night, we have a new animatronic to say hello to. This time around, Sparky the dog makes his grand return. I mean, he's never actually been in FNAF 1, but let's just say he was for today's sake. Sparky is actually very similar to Foxy in this game. Well, not entirely. Sparky gets his own stage. I know, he's pretty privileged. And in this stage, he just stands there and looks around the place. However, he isn't on this stage the whole night. Eventually, Sparky will leave. And at this point, you need to find exactly where Sparky has wandered off to. Because if you don't, then expect a massive dog going into your office and eating your whole head in 5 seconds. The thing about Sparky that makes him difficult is he can be on any of the 9 cameras in the game, excluding one of the cameras which I'll get into later. If you see Sparky, you're going to need to use the flash. And again, as I said before, if you do not do this, then you're gonna get jump scared. What makes Sparky especially difficult is if you mix Chica and Bonnie's mechanics, you have an animatronic that can be on any camera whilst needing to check not only cam 4 and cam 2, but your office for Bonnie. So you pretty much have to be going through cameras and checking the blind and checking Chica at the same time. And if you thought this wasn't hard enough, well, things were only going to get more difficult as the nights go on. Night 3 was overall an interesting challenge. I took a while to beat this night, but I was really paying attention to every single movement I could. And there was plenty of moments where I just sat there confused, but just hoping that I didn't do something wrong. And one of these attempts was pretty successful, as I would beat night 3 and move into another post-night section. Notice how there's another post-night section? Yeah, I don't like this. This time around, we need to do a new task. However, the game bravely displays that there is something different today. Now, I'm actually starting to, get a little bit agitated and scared, but I just took this message pretty lightly and moved into whatever challenge Phone Guy had ahead of me. And this time we had to reset the cameras. So going off into the back room, I would start to repair all the cameras. However, this wasn't just repair a camera. No, we have to hold down a button and it's basically Funtime Freddy from Sister Location. And I don't think you know or I've ever said this on camera before or on the mic, but I think this is one of the most terrifying levels in FNAF history. So the fact now that I have to redo this in a game that perhaps is even more terrifying makes me extremely scared. Essentially, the more you hold down the left mouse button, the more the meter goes up. However, again, Bonnie is on your left, and if you don't look at him for a while, he will travel closer towards you. And not only this, but if you don't hold down the button, the meter goes backwards. So you have to pretty much look left, look right immediately, and keep pressing the button, or else you will not make any progress. And there's around 4 cameras to do. This challenge overall was very difficult. I was having a lot of trouble trying to, make sure I wasn't spending too much time on the cameras, making sure Bonnie wasn't moving, and I was definitely having a difficult time. All this would pretty much go aside as eventually I would beat this section. Bonnie would then kindly leave my room, and this allowed me to finally exit the building. Obviously, I was back again the next day because the security guard for some reason can't tell that this job is absolutely the worst job on planet Earth. This time around, we have another animatronic. Foxy finally appears on night 4. And if you're wondering, is Foxy similar to Fnaf 1? Kinda, he's kinda similar. So, one camera this whole game was not accessible. Well, that changes this night. Camera 7, or is it camera 6? One of these 2 cameras begins to operate, and we see Foxy. Foxy has 3 stages, and if you see him beginning to move, you need to stare at the camera. Once you stare at the camera, Foxy will go back, and this is exactly what you want. Because if you don't do this, then Foxy will sprint to your office, and you get jump scared. Pretty surprising, I know. This is, again, another animatronic which we need to pay attention to. However, unlike the other ones, it's more of one you should check on every so often. So it does make the others a priority, but again, Foxy is something you need to keep on tabs or else, well, it's not going to end well. My night 4 experience was pretty much keep trying until something worked. And eventually this tactic actually paid dividends as I was able to pretty much get through the night on my second attempt. It was safe to say my skills were sharpening, and at this point we moved into, well, another post-night section. This time around, it's not the same as the other 3 nights. In fact, we have to go into the ventilation room. In this room, we are greeted by 6 knobs, and our job is to wind each knob to where we can't wind it anymore. This seems simple, and I would agree with you. If Foxy wasn't going to appear in the vents to our left and right and make our life 10 times harder. And also, I found that the sticky notes to the left were pretty interesting. One of these sticky notes does say no air this week, ? Pretty concerning, because last time I checked, if there's no air, then well, there's no life. This section was difficult because Foxy appeared very often. And if you haven't checked on him, or if you don't check on him, then assume that, well, you're gonna get jump scared. And to know that this whole thing is in a very confined space, it gives off some Pizzeria Simulator vibe. However, if you just hear a rattling sound, you can pretty much assume Foxy's there, and checking on him will make him go away. Keep doing this and winding the knob. If you're patient, then honestly, this isn't the most difficult section. So after this, we moved into night 5, the final challenge of this game. And night 5 does introduce a few new things. First of all, the most notorious thing that this night introduces to us is, well, Freddy Fazbear himself. This whole game, Freddy hasn't really been that much of a threat. In fact, he hasn't actually moved at all until this night. And he's by far the most dangerous animatronic of the bunch. The thing that separates Freddy from the other animatronics is he doesn't behave like the others. His mechanic is if you use the flashlight on him, you will set him back. However, he has one clear path. He moves from 4 cameras, and if he makes his way towards your office, there's no way of getting rid of him. The only way to get rid of him is to hold him back. Which means we're going to need to use the flash as many times as we can to get rid of Freddy. Because if we leave Freddy to move, then we're pretty much not going to survive the night. And also, Freddy is the only animatronic to visibly move on the cameras. Like, you can see him moving his head, and he's the most expressive of the bunch, which makes him by far the most scariest and unnerving animatronic in this game. This night was overall a very hard challenge. In fact, it took me a lot of attempts. After around an hour of gameplay, I started to get the hang of how to keep Freddy back. The key was to keep Freddy at preferably camera 7 for as long as possible, and when he moves, pretty much get straight onto him. Because if we don't pay attention to Freddy, then he will move closer and closer, which is going to make things harder. However, to keep track of the other animatronics as well as Freddy was definitely what made this night absolutely insane. Because you had Sparky, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy to deal with, and each animatronic has their own mechanic, which is just a lot of stuff to keep track of. And the cameras themselves take a while to move, like going from one camera to the other takes a bit, which means you have to be checking every single camera and making sure that you don't miss a single movement. Because if you do, then that's pretty much it for the night. I made it to 4 AM multiple attempts, however, every time I did, I couldn't really get Freddy away from the office. He always ended up here. It was just a matter of stalling him earlier on, and if I haven't really done a good job of this, then no matter how far I get into the night, Freddy will jump scare me. So the only way to counteract this was to just make sure that I stalled Freddy for as long as possible on the first 2 cameras. And on this random attempt, I had Freddy on the last camera at around 5:30. So already I had a bunch of time left, but that didn't mean I was in the clear yet. I still had to get rid of all the other animatronics, and there wasn't a guaranteed chance that Freddy would, well, ignore me. Because that's the thing, if you're not checking on Freddy at all, there's a chance he can move. And at the final stretch of the night, I had to check all the animatronics again. This was where Freddy could have jump scared me. Thankfully though, he didn't, and I was able to complete the night. After this, phone guy gives us a call, telling us that he has something for us in the dining hall. So we listen to phone guy and make our way toward the hall. When we get here, well, every animatronic in the game can be seen in front of us. This was pretty alarming, and I can't lie, I was not sure what was going to happen here, but thankfully nothing really happened. The animatronics ignored us, and at this point, the phone guy just says he finally realized what the flash really does. It takes photos, and he takes a photo of all the animatronics looking at the camera. That pretty much concludes the game, with the place finally shutting down. Phone guy releases the blog at Freddy's, and everyone is now really interested in, well, what's happening here. We also get our paycheck, but I'm gonna be honest, I'm unsure if we even survived this encounter. Anyways, with the conclusion of the main game, we have an extras menu. Here we get to see all the characters and their really disturbing designs. And also we have some behind the scene footage of the game. Here we get to see, well, what seems to be some scrapped content, including, well, first of all, some areas that weren't in the game, and also some of the designs were changed later on, which I found pretty interesting. This game was absolutely terrifying. It took FNAF 1 and it made it so much more disturbing. Also, this game does something that I didn't really expect, where Phone Guy alludes to the characters, the animatronics, being possessed by ancient spirits, which definitely does change things drastically, and it makes it a lot more, in my opinion, just interesting and terrifying. Because this could be an ancient civilization that has been put into these animatronic suits. So they may not even know how to behave around humans. They may see us as an alien at this point. But yeah, let's move into the next game. This next game is called Blessed with Death. I know, a very uplifting title, I must say. This game is, if you can imagine One Night at Flumpty's, but in a very eerie mansion. That's kind of like what this game is. The art style is very reminiscent of One Night at Flumpty's, that's what I'm trying to say. We begin this game with a slideshow, and it says that things are never easy for none of us. And it says that we have a chance, and that not everyone gets one. So I'm assuming that wherever we are, whatever we've done, we have a chance to, I guess, survive. We begin this game, and already we can see what seems to be a skull and a few notes. The decor seems to be very old, and it seems that whatever's been living here or whatever's here is withering away. We've been given a note, and it says that we are here to watch over the house. The note also says that the nearest town is a day's walk away, so wherever we are not going anywhere anytime soon. We do have enough food for the week, which is, I guess, a good thing, but another bad thing is that the telephone and networks are gone. So let's say, I don't know, there was some entities in this building. Well, there's no way we can actually escape. The only way to really survive is to, well, survive. On the cameras, we see the house and we see the different rooms this place has. Some rooms consist of a freezing room where a bunch of meat can be seen. There's also a fireplace, and there's just a bunch of random rooms that this house just contains. Most importantly though, this house contains unwanted guests that are going to make our life a lot more harder. Throughout the night, we will start to see some entities begin to form in the other half of the mansion. The entities will consist of this, if you can call this even a thing, and we also have a headless butler that makes his way toward our office. Essentially, we have two doors to our left and to our right, and in the hallway, we may start to see the entities begin to make their way closer. If we see this, then we need to pay attention, because if they get toward the door, we're going to need to keep the door shut. And in this playthrough, the entities started to get closer and closer until, well, eventually they were right outside the door. My first instinct was to, well, just keep the door shut, and this ended up being an amazing idea, as the entities did not mess with me if the door was shut. Because I can't lie, the headless butler, I would actually throw hands with it, this guy just pisses me off. However, one of the times the entities made their way toward my door, I didn't actually know how long I should keep the door shut for. So what I ended up doing is just keeping the door shut for like 10 seconds because I wasn't sure if something had to happen in between this time. And what happened was when I opened the door, a message came up on my screen saying he took your eyes. I'm not too sure what this even means, but I assume one of the entities got inside the room and took our eyes and is, I don't know, doing something with them. This was my first death. However, on my next attempt, I made it a priority that I didn't keep the doors shut for too long. This was a great idea because this time around, nothing actually went into my room and took my eyes. And eventually, after going through each door and getting rid of all the entities that made their way toward us, I would eventually get through the first night. We moved into the second night, and this time around we have a few things to look out for. First of all, we have a message of what seems to be a vengeful spirit, saying that no matter how high the price is, I will pay for it. And this pretty much puts us into another screen where we get to see some of the tools and things that we've grabbed throughout the game. We have a tool called the Cross of the Void, and it seems to be hundreds of years old, and I'm not too sure why this thing even exists, but it just does. The other thing we have is an old camera, which I'm assuming belonged to, well, Alfred. The camera seems to be very old, and it seemed to have been found in a cardboard box. Also, there were other photos depicting animals inside the box, and it seems that this camera belonged to a hunter of sort. Moving directly into the next night, we have two entities to look out for this time. The first entity I'm going to go through is the red creature inside the painting. This creature starts in one of the paintings on cam H3, and eventually this entity makes it toward the painting in our room. When the entity gets toward this painting, we will begin to see it come closer and closer toward us, kind of like the Ring. Our thing is that if it gets too close, we need to shut the curtain, because if we don't do this, then the entity will actually jump inside the room and, well, terrifyingly jump scare us. This changes things a little bit because this time around we need to check the middle of the room for this entity. The other thing we need to look out for can be found on the left side of the mansion. It seems to be something that's trapped behind a door and seems to just want to get closer and closer inside the mansion. If we see its arms begin to get out of the door and it seems to actually be moving, we need to use the camera. However, we have to be very sparing as we only get 6 camera flashes this whole night. So not a lot, as you can imagine. With everything I've just mentioned, this night does become a little bit harder. The main thing was to just keep checking the doors left and right of us and making sure that we paid attention to the painting and also the door that seems to be housing an absolutely terrifying monster that I definitely don't want in my mansion. I'd managed to get through this night on my first attempt, as there wasn't really anything too game-changing for this night. And this very well concludes the demo, and there is definitely more to come, but for now, that is all we're going to get. Moving on, we do get an extras menu where we get to see all the characters. And yeah, the faces these things have are just something I don't want to ever think of again, in that they're terrifying. We move into a game called Banshee. The title screen is just a image of a vent door looking into, I guess, a pizzeria. It's vague but interesting, so I think it's time we hop straight into this game. After pressing new game, we get some dialogue, and wouldn't you guess, our main character, William Afton, yes, we just can't get enough of William. Someone is speaking to William, saying to him that you've done some really bad shit, and that your sins will not go unpunished. To add on, the spirits inside this place are restless. They want revenge. He also promises a person called Charlotte that wherever you are, I will find you peace. We then get put straight into the game, and what the actual am I looking at? This is something I never thought I would ever see. A Scrap Trap remake. If you haven't already guessed, this is a Pizzeria Simulator remake, and something I think is insane is how disturbing they made Scrap Trap. Anyways, what happens is on the audio messenger, it tells us that you need to pay attention to this animatronic. We are completing a salvage, and our job is to make sure that if anything is heard, any weird sounds, we need to stop playing the audio. And using the computer to our right, we need to log in different like movements that it does, and pretty much just make sure we don't end up getting jump scared. We begin this section, and we also get a meter that I assume gives us a rough estimate on how aggressive the animatronic is. So it's basically a ghost reader. I don't know what it's called. I haven't played Phasmophobia in years. So yeah, that's what I'm going to call it. The first attempt, I didn't actually know that I have to log stuff in the computer, so all I was doing is playing the audio and checking the ghost reader. This worked, I guess, because it gave me an idea on what I was meant to do, but already I was pretty scared because there was really no context. I just had to look out for or listen for any audio that could play. And eventually, the ghost reader went to the red zone, and I could hear the movement of the animatronic, which sounded like it was like howling or something. I instantly turned off everything and sat there like a good boy. I was not going to attempt to die. I then replayed everything after I felt that everything was safe, and I just repeated this for a bit. Nothing really happened, the same thing just kept happening, and eventually I just kept the ghost reader on because I didn't hear any weird sounds. However, this wasn't a good idea. My first jump scare nearly had me at least 10 seconds of airtime as I jumped out of my seat and almost hit my head on my ceiling. The next attempt was the exact same. I didn't know that the computer needed to be, well, typed in, and I continued to just keep the ghost reader on and check it. It was just pretty much me hearing a very weird sound, me turning off the audio, and repeating this for like 5 minutes. I was then also met with another jump scare. So on my third attempt, this time around, I did the exact same thing as I did before, but this time I'm like, ooh, computer. What if I type? Oh my god, I was meant to type the whole time. You're meant to do 3 logs in the computer, and once you complete this, the salvage section is pretty much done and dusted. And then you get put straight into the main bulk of the game, also known as the night section. The night section has you in a room with a computer screen. Around you is a bunch of stuff that you don't really have to worry about yet. But all you need to do is go on the computer and listen to the audio that's being spoken to you. Essentially, in this night, we have cameras, which I'm going to be honest, I struggle to navigate these cameras. The way they work is you have to use the arrow keys and you have to kind of go off the camera, and it's like a maze. So I wasn't really too inclined to use these cameras at all. And to be honest, at this point, there wasn't really a need to use them as there was an animatronic in the demo. It's a demo, by the way, that we don't have to worry about, that is primarily on the camera. Anyways, moving on, there's another thing we need to worry about. This is the task. Now, you don't have to do these tasks, but you would be a bitch not to. So I'm like, okay, let me do these tasks. And first of all, they're pretty annoying. The first task has you pretty much having to go ahead and check if the text is the same for each side. If it's the same, you press Y. If it's not the same, you press N. However, the amount of change that could happen is like one letter is different. Like let's say it's parcel post, and it could be like, one could say parcel and the other could say just another word. So it's pretty much you have to check everything and make sure nothing is changed. I was struggling a lot when I first did this because first of all, I suck at this type of stuff. Like spot the difference has always been a trouble of mine, probably because I'm blind. No, I'm not actually blind, I don't wear glasses, but I probably should because I suck at this game. But don't worry, this isn't the hardest task. That would belong to, I would say, maybe tasks 2. Because this time around, we have to either cut the paper or print the paper. And all the text you get is either going to be something you should archive or something that should be deleted. Like I'd say something that should be deleted is, I don't know, missing children. You know, chuck that in the bin. We don't need that. Just chuck it away. And stuff you should keep is like, I don't know, the protocol stuff, all that should be kept. Sometimes though you might get confused what should be archived and what should be deleted, and the problem is you need to get 10 in a row that's correct. So let's say you stuff up, you have to redo all the archives. And this one did take me a little bit because I was struggling to like figure out which one's which, and that's not the best, especially when there's animatronics that are also after us. I haven't actually mentioned yet, but Scrap Trap is actually after us this night. How Scrap Trap works is to our left, and to our right. Occasionally, it may appear in either of these doors. If you see it, don't move, because if you move, well, you die. And your goal is to stare at it until it walks away. And by the way, why does it look like that? That is just nightmare fuel. I'm trying to sleep tonight and I have to see this. But anyways, enough about that. Scraptrap is pretty much the first animatronic, but there's another one. This one is actually one that can trick us. Basically, throughout the room, as I mentioned before, we need to pay attention to things. There's different posters, there's different books, and sometimes the books can say it's me on it. If it says it's me, it's time to shut your eyes, because whatever it is that did it is now trying to jump scare you. As you shut your eyes, you're going to hear it breathe behind you and then move away. I know, not fun, but you know, is what it is. So those are the two threats. Straight away, I wasn't too sure how to deal with them because the game does tell you, but you kind of have to, you know, find out yourself, in that you have to fly out of your seat as you get jump scared. There's also two more tasks. The first one, which I'm going to go through quick. Basically, there's a bunch of numbers. When the number is, well, not moving, you have to type the number in, and there's weird pictures. That's it. Do this 4 times and yippee yay, you complete this third task. And task 4 is exactly the same, but with the arrow keys. There's also a quick little glimpse of the, I'm guessing, Scrap Baby design. By the way, I don't like this. This doesn't look right. This thing is absolutely terrifying. I don't want to see the full design. Please, just... Right, so with everything out of the way, this night was... it took me a while to beat. First of all, the animatronics. Look, they're not the most difficult, but especially when you have no idea how to actually use the mechanics of the game when you first play, you can get some times where you get jump scared and you get jump scared and you keep getting jump scared, and I guess that's just you learning how the game works. And also with the task, which when I played, I thought you had to do them, but it was just if you wanted to get a bonus pay, which honestly at this rate, there's no point because you're not actually in a tycoon section. But you know, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get these done because I'm just so good. So I actually did them, but dealing with things like the animatronics did make it a lot harder. I did get the hang of things, and eventually I was dealing with animatronics left, right, and center. I looked to my left, I see Scraptrap, I'd stare at him, I'd then look straight, look for the posters, check for anything that's changed, and I'd close my eyes. Repeating this, eventually, I would get through the night. And at this stage, I've made it, guys. I've won. What the f*** is that? So it appears that someone or something made its way to our office. And then the game cuts. Who knows what happens, but all I can tell you is a screen happens to play, and it seems to be the Fnaf 4 house. And then something is telling us, do you remember this house? We say we do because we're Michael Afton. We're the guy that chucks the crying child. Basically, we're an idiot. At this stage, it's telling us that, why did you do it? And we're just saying, I don't know. And then it just says, you're just scared. And that pretty much concludes the game. We then get a weird, like, safe, which I was confused about. And by opening the safe, we get, so I think the game might have ended. Okay, so the last game for this video is called Fnaf The Drawned. If you can't tell, this game is basically all just drawn. Everything is, it's like someone sketched it out on a piece of paper, if I'm gonna explain it. Alright, so new game it is, and straight away, we get a randomizer. You're gonna be thinking, what the hell is a randomizer doing in a Fnaf game? I'll tell you what it is. Basically, if you press spin, it gives you a random, well, setback for the night. You could do it without the modifier, where you can play the game normally, but I mean, what's the fun in that? We need something to make the game a little bit spicy. First randomizer we got was, drumroll please, one more flash. Essentially, this gives you an extra flash to any flash mechanic. You probably don't know what that means yet because we haven't actually began the game, but let's actually get into that stuff. Right, so in the office itself, we have 2 doorways to our left and to our right, and in front of us, we have the camera system. We have a flash for not only the cameras, but also our flashlight. Now, because of the modifier we got, we need to use 4 flashes to get rid of the animatronics. That's what I'm gonna get into next, the animatronics themselves. The animatronics will appear either to the left and to the right of you, this being Bonnie and Chica. If you see any of these 2 animatronics, they will require you to use the flashlight 3 times. Once you do this, they will go away and they will do that again and again. And yeah, let's move on to Foxy, who's the other animatronic. Foxy is in your camera system. You can see Foxy mostly in his cove. However, not all the time is this the case. Occasionally, Foxy can make a sound, and this means that he's moving to a new camera. If Foxy does this, all the cameras will become orange and they will glow this color. And you need to simply find the camera where Foxy is on and use the flashlight 3 times. If you fail to do this, then expect a clothesline by Foxy himself. When I first played, I didn't actually know how to use the camera flashlight. And the reason why is because I'm actually genuinely stupid. I mean, look at the cameras. There's a massive flash button next to the camera like icon. For some reason, I didn't see this. I thought this just what said flash and it was just not a button. But I mean, come on, that is literally shaped like a button. The fact that this took me nearly 20 minutes to figure out is genuinely sad. But anyways, eventually, when I learned how to use the flash, I was like, ooh, I'm stupid. And now it was a lot easier to actually get through the night. With the additional flash that I had to do for the animatronics, it was, I guess, a little bit harder. But I mean, all you have to do is just press one more button. Like, it wasn't telling me to do something extremely hard, it just told me to press a singular button again. So this wasn't that hard, and eventually I got through night 1 and moved into the second night. However, we have a cutscene, and what this entails is we have a mother and a daughter. The daughter is called Maya, and she's talking to the mother. She says that she's going to go out and play, and the mother goes, yep, go for it, you'll be fine. We all know how this ends. I mean, it's FNAF. The child ends up becoming missing, and then that pretty much puts us into night 2. This time around, we have a new animatronic. This is Freddy. Freddy is a little different to everyone else. He will begin in his front stage, and then Freddy will begin his way towards your office, and your job is to stall him. Freddy has a singular path where he will always take, and your goal is to stall him on the way to your office. To do that, go onto the cameras. Yes, you actually have to go on the cameras. You can't just have it on that camera and expect to go to hallway. You have to be on the camera, which I didn't know actually. So when I began doing this night, I was going to the hallways thinking, okay, my camera is on this one, Freddy's there, I'm fine. But no, I got jump scared many times and I was wondering, why was this happening? It's because you're stupid and you have to check the camera to check if he's there. Pretty much, if Freddy ends up getting to your office, then good luck, that's game over, you're dead. This night was a little harder. Now with Freddy, we have to really pay attention to literally everything. But I mean, it wasn't that bad. I mean, as long as you're checking these 3 primary cameras, I mean, there's nothing that can really go wrong. Just make sure Foxy doesn't end up, I don't know, getting into your office. Eventually, I'd beat night 2 and a new cutscene would play. The cutscene is called, anyways, this cutscene entails Anya, who is the mother of Maya, and I assume the husband Matt. Matt says how he's being diagnosed with the Walter White disease and that he is he doesn't have much time left. And that pretty much is the summary of this cutscene. It's just telling us that the guy doesn't have time to really do anything. It's actually pretty sad. Well, the actual cutscene ends with Matt saying how he has some rituals he's been doing. So, I guess that's cool. Night 3 begins, and this time, let's do the modifier. I actually forgot last night's modifier, but this night we get, Shadow Hour. What is this? Essentially, the screen gets darker every hour. So, I mean, I guess we're gonna have less visibility as the night progresses. Honestly, not the hardest modifier. The gameplay did change a little bit. This night's a little different from the last night because Freddy actually has a different mechanic. This time around, Freddy won't kill you when he gets to your office. What he will instead do is he will turn off your power. I haven't actually gone through what happens when the power turns off, but essentially you lose access to all the flashlights and pretty much you need to get the power on as quickly as possible. For this night, what we need to do is we need to turn around and there will be this like control panel thing. It will pulse and essentially every time the thing pulses, we need to press the button. If we do this multiple amount of times, the power turns on and yay, we haven't died. It sounds easy, but it's actually quite hard because when you have all the animatronics to deal with and the power is literally off, you can't deal with anything but the power. And in this game, things can sneak up on you very fast. The thing that I was struggling with was the whole new Freddy mechanic. This completely makes the night different, and especially when you're not used to having to turn on the power, it makes the game a lot harder. But it's nothing to really go crazy about because I would eventually get through the night after multiple attempts. After completing night 3, we get another cutscene. This time around, Matt seems to be pretty much luring Anya into the parts and service room. The room seems to be set up like a ritual, and as Matt said before, he's doing some weird ritual stuff for whatever reason. Matt then randomly just says, "Shoot me." and we are left to make the decision to shoot Matt. The game really doesn't give us a direct decision, but it's clear that Anya does reject this offer. I mean, like a sane human would. However, Matt says Maya would have wanted this, and then Anya is left with the decision to, well, shoot Matt. This concludes this chapter with a massive cliffhanger, so we move into night 4. This night is exactly the same as night 3, but Freddy has a new mechanic. Yes, they've given Freddy 3 new mechanics in one game, so I'm not sure why this is the case, but anyways, how Freddy works in this night is, again, he will make his way towards your office. However, when Freddy gets right in front of you, it's your job to turn off the power. So instead of Freddy turning off the power, we are instead turning off the power. With the power turned off, we need to wait 5 to 6 seconds until the light turns off, and then we can resume with the night. This was a different approach to the night and made things a little bit different. When I first encountered this, obviously I didn't know what I was doing, which led to a quick jump scare. I was really getting fed up with all the Freddy change-ups in this whole game. I mean, already we have 3, and a bit of a spoiler, but night 5 has another one. But yeah, I had to really pay attention to Freddy now, and also the other animatronics. Because if I was dealing with the animatronics and then Freddy decides to show up, then if I'm not paying attention to that, I die. So I need to pay attention to pretty much every single thing in this night and make sure that nothing gets too close to me. This was easier said than done, and it did leave me, well, playing this game for a while. But I was getting better, and soon enough, I beat night 4. We then have another cutscene, and this time around, Matt seems to be transformed into an animatronic. He reaches out to Anya and says, "You can join me." Matt, now being a terrifying 7-foot animatronic, leads Anya into the pass and service room again. Anya obviously says, "No, get the hell away from me," but Matt persists and says, "Maybe if you see what I'm doing, you might want to join me." In this room, we see a child begging to be set free. Anya is visibly shaken and is now completely unsure of Matt's mental state. I mean, if it wasn't obvious enough, now she's definitely sure that she needs to get the hell out of here. However, she can't. Matt has pretty much trapped her into the situation. Matt says 1 soul and 2 bodies for infinite life. Matt then psychotically says to us that everything he does is for them to. He then goes up to the child and proceeds to, well, crush it. This then concludes the cutscene, and wow, I was not expecting this at all. This took me completely off guard. I mean, I wasn't expecting the story to take this much of a drift. But anyways, we now move into night 5, the final night of the game. This night, as I mentioned before, Freddy has a switch up, and he is now pretty much like Foxy. However, instead of him jump scaring you if you fail to, see him, instead he will turn off that camera for the remainder of the night. The way to tell where Freddy is by hearing out for the music box. The music box will be wherever Freddy is, and if you see Freddy, you're going to need to go behind you, and there will be these like camera things that you can switch on and off. If you see Freddy on a camera, you have to go behind and check which camera it is and turn it off. If you don't do this and Freddy ends up turning off the camera, well then you're going to lose access to that, specific camera. And not only that, but if Foxy spawns on that specific area, then you have no chance of surviving. So it's in your best interest to get rid of Freddy as fast as you can, because if you don't, then good luck. This night was difficult because now we have every single threat at us, and not only that, but Freddy was by far the most annoying animatronic, because the time you have to check if Freddy's on the camera and turn it off is not much. And the more cameras you have turned off, the more likely the chance of Foxy jump scaring you, which is not good. But I was determined to beat this night, whatever means necessary. That meant learning absolutely every single mechanic to the point where if I see it, I'm already onto it and making sure that nothing can get me. The weird thing about this night is the day before, I spent 40 minutes trying to beat the night and I ended up just giving up. However, the day after, I went on just to play the game and I magically got through the night on my first attempt. I'm not sure how this happened, but I assume it's just, when you're struggling and you just get off the game and then the next day you beat it on your first attempt. Just something like that happened, and well, this pretty much concluded the first 5 nights of the game, and we have the final cutscene to get into. Matt has pretty much become fully insane. He says to Anya that she can do this. He then reaches out a hand toward her. Anya instead rejects this offer and brings out an axe. She then proceeds to absolutely hammer Matt's head in, and this makes it so his head is no longer on his body. After this, Matt falls to the ground, and at this point, Anya just proceeds to leave the room. Matt, desperately clinging onto life, goes ahead and grabs a TV monitor and then puts it onto his head. He then stands up and is now reborn. as The Drawned. Matt promises that he will get out, and that puts an end to night 5. We have one last night for the game, being night 6. And this time around, instead of Freddy being the main antagonist, The Drawned is the main antagonist. Because immediately as we get into the office, The Drawned seems to just come out of nowhere and just stare at us. The Drawned is the new Freddy of the night, and he has every single Freddy mechanic ranging from night 3 all the way to night 5. Which means that The Drawned can do pretty much everything that Freddy could do, beside the night 2 mechanic. This is pretty alarming, as now we have to pay attention to every single possible mechanic that Freddy has. And there's a lot, because if you haven't noticed already, I went through his mechanics 4 times. So I'm not going to go through them again, but there is definitely a lot of switch ups in this night. Because he can turn off your power, he can have you turn off the power, and he can be in any camera and turn off those cameras. And not only that, but you have to check on the other animatronics to see if they are also behaving right. And if you don't do this, then good luck, because you're not going to survive this night. My night 6 experience was pretty interesting because just like night 5, I actually got through it pretty steadily. This was due to me being, at this point, pretty accustomed to all the mechanics the game had. And not only that, I just found that with the modifier I got, it was pretty easy because it was like the broken flashlight one, which was nowhere near as difficult as some of the other modifiers can get. The Drawned did make the night a little harder because, I mean, with 3 new mechanics to deal with on the same night, definitely was something I was not expecting to be this difficult. However, I eventually beat the night, and finally we get the final cutscene. The Drawned seems to be out of options. He lunges toward the character, however proceeds to just crumble beneath his own weight. This puts an end to The Drawned and an end to Fnaf The Drawned. After the end credit scene, The Drawned seems to escape the pizzeria, and this is the post credit scene and puts a massive cliffhanger for what could come next. After the events of the game, I went into the extras menu to see all the behind the scene footage and just character models. I mean, some of these models are absolutely fantastic, and we also get to see some of the other characters like Matt and Anya in a lot more detail. There's also some nice concept art and some level design stuff that I found pretty awesome. That pretty much puts an end to Fnaf The Drawned. And that's all the Fnaf games for this video. I know, you want more Fnaf games. I know, trust me, I know. And I'm probably going to go into more deeper depth into some of these FNAF games in the future, or probably make some more solo videos where we go through one particular game. But for now, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, smash a like, because the more likes, the better. And subscribe if you do enjoy the content and never want to miss out on a future upload. And with that, until next time, take it easy and goodbye.